All right, let's talk about something big. What happens when corruption isn't just about a few bad people, but it's actually baked into the entire system? And more importantly, how in the world does a society break free from something that feels like an unbreakable iron chain? Let's dive in. So, it all starts with this weird paradox, when you might have even felt yourself. We're constantly hearing about more crackdowns, more arrests, these big anti corruption campaigns. But for a lot of us, that feeling that the system is rigged, it just doesn't go away. In fact, sometimes it feels like it's getting even worse. So, what's going on? Well, the answer isn't about counting arrests, it's about really understanding the system itself. And to do that, we have to look past the flashy headlines and really get to grips with this paradox. We need to examine the deep structure of how things actually work. This right here is the key difference. See, on the one hand, you have your occasional corruption. That's an individual breaking the rules. It's an anomaly, right? And you punish it to get things back to normal. But systemic corruption, that's a whole different beast. It's when corruption is the logic of the system. It's the unwritten rule, the thing you have to do just to get by. So what even is that underlying logic? I mean, how does a whole system get to that point in the first place? The source material has a great name for it, the lubricant effect. Think about it like this. Corruption stops being a crime and starts being the grease that makes the wheels of society turn. It's like an admission fee you're forced to pay just to get access to basic opportunities or resources. Doesn't matter if you're a person or a company. And a system like this is brilliant at keeping itself going. It really thrives when power and money are stuck in the hands of just a few people and there's zero transparency. And this next part is crucial. When the anti-corruption campaigns themselves can be used as a political weapon to take out your rivals, well, that just makes everything even murkier. In a world like that, the unwritten rules become way more important than the actual laws. And this is where the story takes a really dark turn. Because a system this corrupt can't survive without a steady supply of people who are willing to play along. And that process, that conditioning, it often starts with twisting the very purpose of education. You can actually see it as this four-step breakdown. So step one, a healthy education system is supposed to foster independent thinking. But in a corrupt system, its purpose shifts. Step two, it starts teaching what the source calls a slavish identification with power. Basically, don't question, just obey. Then, step three, it gets even more basic, just reducing its whole function to job training. And the final kind of chilling result? Step four, the mass production of tool people. So what in the world are tool people? Well, they're people who've been conditioned to lose their own moral compass, to stop thinking for themselves. They start to see themselves and everybody else not as human beings, but as instruments, just cogs in a machine, defined only by how useful they are to the system. This quote from the source, wow, it really captures the devastating end result. The goal isn't to fix the problem anymore. It's to find a slightly more comfortable spot inside the problem, usually by pushing someone else down. It is a total dead end, both morally and intellectually. And when that logic spreads through an entire society, it creates this psychological trap, a predicament that feels completely inescapable. This is where everything gets turned completely upside down. Think about it. In this kind of society, the person with integrity who plays by the rules, they're seen as naive, a fool. But the person who knows how to game the system, who's cunning and opportunistic, oh, they're admired. They're seen as skillful, as smart. It just rips the fabric of society apart. And that brings us to the most crucial point of all. The system eventually becomes a mutually harmful society. Everybody is both a participant and a victim. You might get a tiny benefit from one corrupt act today, but you're going to pay the price for 1,000 others tomorrow. In the end, nobody, and I mean nobody, truly escapes the damage. So that leads us to the most important question here. If the system really is this cold, interlocking iron chain, if everyone is trapped, is there any way out? How can you possibly break a chain like that? The source argues that there is one, and only one, force powerful enough to melt that chain. A collective awakening, a fundamental shift in how people see the world and their own place in it. But awakening can sound a little abstract, right? So what does it actually mean? Well, it's really a three-step process. First, it starts simply by looking the situation square in the face and acknowledging the truth, no excuses. Then comes this critical light bulb moment, realizing that any of those little benefits you get from playing the corrupt game are totally wiped out by the huge costs the system puts on you. And finally, it all comes together in this deep understanding that in a race to the bottom, everyone loses. There are no real winners. Now, once that awakening begins, it's not a passive thing. It demands action. The source calls this next crucial phase spreading the righteous path. And the righteous path is basically the antidote. It's the active choice to take back our own humanity. It means choosing to be an independent person instead of that slavish identification with power we talked about. It means demanding a society built on trust and contracts, not shady backroom deals based on who has the most power. But look, this is no quick fix, and as the source wraps up with this really powerful metaphor, changing a system this deep isn't like flipping a switch. It's more like trying to farm on barren, salty land. It is a long, slow process of sowing seeds, of trying to improve the soil one small action at a time, hoping that eventually something better can finally start to grow. The journey out of the darkness really begins when enough people realize that in a broken system, the only way to save yourself is to help save everyone.